so also in the process, this creative process is like, say if you're creating something, you have something new that you want to do. I'm just gonna just go through some different steps that you might want to do. If you're feeling stuck, especially if you're feeling stuck, these are some tips.
Writer's block.
And I kind of feel like the process isn't linear at all, because I kind of wrote them down and kind of how I'm doing them, and they don't make any sense, but they're so darn helpful. So my process for doing something new, like when I'm planning a new project, a new, album, or right now I'm working on a new brand, and it's like it's there, but I'm still trying to figure out what exactly I'm doing. So my list here. So it's silence, meditation. That's like when you just go into the silence and listen to what's going on, like turn off all the noise that's going on around you and just listen, just like, what do I need to do? What, and that's just tapping into yourself. I think we all have such wisdom within ourselves, and that's very woo. But I feel that we often know what the answers are. And when we're like, oh, well, what should I do? What should I do? What should I do? And we're asking all these different people, when the answers are often very much right inside us. So,
yeah, a lot of times we know what to do, but maybe we're being lazy about, we know it's going to take a lot of work. And so we come up with all these excuses. Yeah, I do that for sure.
Yeah. So just to take some time in the silence and listen to what the mothership is trying to tell you. Silence meditation. Some people who are into woo-woo, they might like divination. So divination are things like tarot cards. They'll go to a tarot card reader, or they'll go to a psychic. This is for the woo-woo people. This isn't for everybody. But if you're feeling like I'm dealing with, how do I deal with two men that I'm seeing, and I want to decide which one, you're just, whatever your issue is. Some people like to use divination in the form of like tarot cards, psychic, or some kind of oracle, angel cards, to get some kind of sign. So that's just one way, but it doesn't have to be the only way. Journal, I mentioned that. Journaling is a great way for doing either stream of conscious writing, where you write down whatever comes to your mind without thinking about it, and then you review the paper later and you're like, oh my goodness, that's what I was thinking. So that can be really helpful. Talk to a mentor, talk to someone who is experienced in something that you are going through. Like if you're struggling with a particular issue, or you're trying to create something, talk to another artist. If you're an
that's
artist.
why I have you and Sheila come on the podcast, so I can
Thank you.
have my mentors on.
Oh, fantastic. Hey, but you know what? In addition to talking to a mentor, I'd also say talk to other people. So like, you've been a really great example of that during this conversation, or our conversation today, that just talking to another person, regardless of what their niche is. There's someone that likes you, someone that you have some kind of similarity. Like, we both like personal branding, for example. Talking to you has been really helpful, because you're giving me some food for thought. And I'm writing down and I'm taking notes. And so I'd say talk to a mentor, but also talk to similar-minded people, people that you trust. You can't talk to everybody. People who appreciate your path. And hear yourself speak, but also take the time to listen. Listen to what the other person is saying, especially when you're speaking with someone, or especially when the advice is coming from, someone that you respect, someone who is experienced. Listen to them, even if it doesn't seem like it's making sense. They're ahead of the game, so just listen and see. And then also when you talk to other people, listen to them, because they are not you. And they're going to notice something, or have a point of view or perspective that you hadn't thought of. Like, when you're saying like, how much woo do you want to be? And you're asking me like, well, how do you feel? 75, 85, 50%, And I hadn't thought of that, but I was asking myself that question: how woo do I want to be? And, just from talking to you, I'm like, well, 70%. Wow. If you look at my current brand at Internet Famous VIP, there's no woo in there whatsoever.
Right.
None.
Maybe next meditation session, you can really focus on that and figure out that number.
But it's really boring. So, but maybe that is what I'm missing. So
maybe start raising that woo level on Internet VIP.
Perhaps I will. It's like what I didn't do this year, but I've done the past 2 years. I did a online success challenge, and that would be kind of woo actually. And this year I didn't do it because I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do. And actually, one friend of mine was like, "Well, what happened to the thing that you did on the New Year?" And I was like, "Oh, I do like a 10-day challenge from the day after Christmas to January 4th. The 10-day challenge, online success challenge, and I'm talking about things like your vision and
yeah, that's
beating the
good.
terror
That's
barrier.
it.
Oh
I
yeah,
like it.
yeah, actually,
Yeah. I think I
it
remember
is.
you doing those. I don't remember if I was in a spot where I participated for all
I
of it.
don't know. I don't know, but I suppose that might have been planting a seed that I didn't even realize. Because I remember when I put it together, I thought this is so unlike any of the other stuff I'm doing, but I really like to do it. So I suppose that
That's
was
important. And you found out that you have people through that stream, that audience that also were into it. So that's a good
yeah,
realization.
yeah, yeah. So I
That's
have to
awesome.
look at that.
I want to
Yeah.
add something real quick before I forget.
Oh, uh-huh.
So as far as, listening to others, and you mentioned this, but I just want to point out my point of view. When you're listening to mentors, and this is maybe me being kind of like a wild child or whatever you want to call me, I don't really like going by the book, so to speak. So what I do, and again, use this at your own risk, but whenever I have someone like a mentor, I super am interested in what they're saying. And I'm super interested in learning from people that have been around the same business for a while. But I also know that sometimes people develop habits that might not be helpful for them or might not be helpful in my particular case. So I'm definitely very open-minded no matter with the experience level. If I'm talking to someone that's been around for 20, 30 years in that industry, I'm still very interested in what they say, but also more interested in how it applies to me in my particular case. The same way I'm interested in someone that's just starting out and learning, it'd be like me teaching someone that's 60 years old in tennis versus me teaching someone that's 6 years old in tennis, and both looking at both levels and trying to learn how I can apply that to my life in my particular case. So I just want to point out, like, some people, I think and I'm not saying you do this, but some people, they might have a mentor and think, oh, I have to do it exactly like this because that's what they did. And it worked for them. But that's not always, I don't like putting myself in a box like that. And so I want to encourage other people to know that you don't have to feel like that. Even if someone is like, well, this worked for me, so this is how you need to do it. Like, well, maybe you can do a slight different version of that, but just wanted to throw that out there as my kind of I don't like going by the book head.
Yes, yes. That's great. Actually, it's two things that you just reminded me of. I so agree with that because now, as I was saying before, that my list here, my process is not in order. And that is why I said, talk to people, talk to people, talk to your friends or talk to a mentor. Oh, I didn't mention research. Like, do some research, some wool gathering, as I call it. Like,
I like that term.
What I say?
Wool gathering.
Wool gathering. Like the wool, you're going out and getting the wool. And for those of you who don't know, and the thing is, I'm a city girl, but I just happen to know this that sheep, like, they're always scratching themselves on stuff, so they leave lots of wool behind from their fur. So people go back. So I guess the wool folk would go and get the wool from where they would go pick it off. But they send the kids to go pick the wool, and then they bring it back to the home, and then the mother would make woolen sweaters out of those. So I mean, it was that much. So yeah. So I learned that little factoid.
That's
anyway,
a fun factoid.
So wool gathering is like when you're doing research. You're doing Google searches, and you're going to museums, and you're reading a lot of subjects. You're going to the library and just spending a lot of time working on, looking at a particular thing. Or maybe you go to Barnes and Noble and you're reading a whole bunch of books as if they still have Barnes and Noble where you are now. Or you go on Amazon, whatever, and you're looking at these different topics. Like you're researching, this is the creative process. But at some point, you do have to come back to the silence and just listen. What feels good for you? Just because, you're right, just because your mentor said this, or just because someone famous said that, does that resonate with you? Do you really want to do that? And so silence is definitely, it's like I have to go back and forth from it, because I'll get a whole bunch of ideas, and then it'll kind of mess me up in the head, because then I'll be like, oh, wait, I could do this. And then I have to come back to the silent place, to the still place, and say, what do I really want to do? Let me think about this for a second. Let me chill before I take that action. So silence is definitely part of that. And back to what you were saying about like listening to mentors and listening to things that like people who have been around a while. I saw this great quote by Gary Vee. We were talking about Gary Vee, and it said something like, "Market like the time that you're in." I'm paraphrasing it. Basically, he's saying market like people do right now. Like you might have been in, say for example, people are like, "Oh, I wanted to be an Amazon blogger," and not really understand that. Yes,
that's
that
changed.
was a really big deal then, but right now it has changed, and the amount of money that you can make has just decreased. So you have to find out, what are people doing now. So what are people doing now? A lot of people are doing some really interesting things on Instagram right now, and that's where I am right now.
Like what?
What's that?
Like what interesting things are they doing on Instagram?
Oh, interesting things about being really creative. I really love. The thing I'm like, when I say I'm crushing on Instagram, like I have this huge crush on other people's pictures. And I love looking at how creative people are with their pictures, from things they do with Photoshop. There's like this family that is a family of 5. I don't even know where they're from. They all dress up in a similar kind of outfit, but then they Photoshop pieces of food in front of them. I don't know. There's another family. They do like these scenes on a sheet on the floor, and I guess they have some kind of crane camera, but they have the thing, like they have the kid doing things like flying in the sky, but it's all done with like sheets. It's just really creative pictures. It's just like, wow. Or these mommy and me pictures, or there's this family of 3 women. I mean, I think there's more of them, but there's 3 women. It's the mother, her oldest daughter, and her youngest daughter, and they do like stair step, all dressed alike or dressed in a similar kind of theme. It's just like all these very creative. Or let's see. Oh, a lot of decor, like inner decor, home decor. There we go. Like there's this feed I like where they do. It's like a very small house. I mean, a very small apartment, I think. And the person does, what do? They do, they're in a small house, and it's a woman. She does a lot of upcycling and recycling, I guess like vintage wear. So she'll bring stuff home, and then she'll change the corner shelf into something, and she'll take a picture, and then maybe she'll sell it or something. And then the next time we see the same section, it's got Christmas lights and different, so she's using her space as a model for Instagram. So I mean, like all this kind of creativity on Instagram.
And how are people monetizing their creativity in Instagram here in 2000?
Well, in her case, for example, she sells a lot of the items. She has a website or something, so she might sell a lot of those items on her website.
Cool.
Some people have like a Poshmark website. So I guess it's kind of like eBay, but it's like for nice clothes. So they'll have really cool fashion looking things, designs on Instagram, and they link to their Poshmark page where they sell it, where people resell vintage items. They have a product that they're selling, it's a store that has really cool graphics, and you get into it and you're like, oh, I want to buy from them. So I've been really fascinated with what people are doing with their pictures and monetizing it. So that's.
Have you thought about doing that with gemstones or the crystals or?
Well, I'm not into crystals. Crystals aren't my thing, but I was thinking I could I would put pictures of them on there because I follow people that I follow crystal pages because they're so beautiful. Like some of these, my thing is like, I don't like to have a lot of stuff if I can help it. So,
Same.
like, so these women, or, well, they just happen to be women, I suppose. They have crystals. They have like these gorgeous collections, but I think they're also stores. At least I hope they're stores because they have these beautiful decorations or grids or I don't know, made out of crystals. And I'm like, that's a lot of crystals to be buying. I'm like, I just don't see myself buying a lot of crystals. I'm not into crystals, but I know that some people really are. But what I'm saying is, I'd be very happy to share someone else's picture from Instagram on some gorgeous crystals, but I don't have to buy them myself. So that curation is another thing, another topic.
That would be interesting. You taking the pictures of the crystals?
Like, I don't have to take the pictures. So what I'm learning, what?
I see. You just sharing other people's pictures.
Yes.
I see.
So, yes. So you can do that when you give them credit, or maybe you ask them. I'm still learning on how that works, but there are a lot of photographers or pages, a lot of pages on Instagram or feeds, accounts, I don't know what you call them, that do like you to share their stuff. So I think when you make a connection with a friendship or relationship with another person on Instagram that has the kind of content you like, that's another thing to think about. You can curate your content. You don't have to just create it yourself. And I think it's a good idea to tag the person who really, who took the picture, or give them credit, because it's also back and forth. And then also they can send people back to you, and it's good karma. So, when people who like send pictures but use other people's pictures but don't credit the author, I think that's kind of whack. But I think it's good to share that wealth, and it's good karma, and it brings people back to your site.
Yeah, I would agree. I think that's a good strategy of gaining your audience for Instagram particularly.